For the fifth straight season, your Buffalo Bills are AFC East champions. And of course, I'm going to recap everything that took place this past Sunday night between the Buffalo Bills and the San Francisco 49ers. As the Bills, as I mentioned, five straight AFC East division championships. I'm mentioning that. I'm going to repeat it throughout the show for every Dolphins, Jets, Patriots fan out there. The fact that the Bills clinch the division is one thing for the fifth straight season. It just goes to show you what Josh Allen and company have been able to accomplish along with Brandon Beane. And for as much as, week to week, sometimes here and there, we criticize Sean McDermott. It has been a hell of a run thus far in the quote-unquote Josh Allen era. Of course, this show, the Thomas Dick Sports Podcast, brought to you by 26shirts.com, as well as streamed live every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock on the Buffalo Fanbase Podcast Network. Wherever you're tuning in, whether it is the Buffalo Fanbase YouTube, whether it is the Thomas Take Sports Podcast YouTube channel, Facebook, you name it, I really appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week. These last couple weeks, though, I haven't been able to hop on. I've been down and out with a tough bug, I guess you could call it. And I've been happy starting to feel better, starting to feel like myself. And wanted to hop on here and definitely recap what was a classic, all-time classic game in grand style. The Buffalo Bills win their fifth straight AFC East championship in a snowy classic that was just picture perfect. So many things took place in this game. I honestly don't really know where to start, but going into it, I felt like this was a formidable opponent. Despite the injuries that the 49ers have, despite Brock Purdy being banged up, despite Christian McCaffrey going down in this one early. That was the most unfortunate moment in the game. As a big football fan, as much of a Bills fan as I am, I'm an even bigger football fan in and of itself. And to see a guy like that battle back from the injury, the Achilles tendonitis, only to suffer a torn PCL, that was really unfortunate. But knowing the San Francisco 49ers, knowing Kyle Shanahan and that offense with the zone running scheme that they have, virtually every running back that they have in that offense is dangerous. That offensive line is extremely good. So I felt like, okay, Christian McCaffrey's out, which, is bad for the 49ers. He was doing damage against the Bills, but they got Jordan Mason. He leads the league in he led the 49ers and at one point led the league in rushing. Then he goes down. He suffers a ankle sprain. So both of those guys are on IR after the aftermath of a snowy, tough to find your footing football game for both the Buffalo Bills and the Niners. But it's safe to say that I think the Bills had a much easier time finding their footing in the weather that they're accustomed to playing in this time of year. It just seems like they were able to reportedly practice for it. They practiced in it. They were ready to just be a part of that environment. And that environment included 70,000 plus of their own screaming for him, cheering for him. And what a game. I know plenty of people that were there. Shout out to Scott and Swank and Jared. I know that they were there. 24/7 Buffalo, my buddies from the Sunday sessions and the K-Gun Report, of course. I know that they were there, and that had to have been a very memorable game. I haven't heard their voices since that game took place, so I'm assuming that they had suffered from what I was suffering from these last few weeks, just the weird, just winter sickness that's been going around. But safe to say that they probably felt like it was worth it. I don't know if they're down and out as much as I've been these last couple weeks, but I definitely feel like they're pretty happy about the fact that they went to that game, as they should be. So obviously, as I mentioned, Bills win their fifth straight AFC title, snowy classic, the most memorable or ridiculous touchdown that I have ever seen. I'm just going to break it down just in terms of how it happened. Josh Allen to Amari Cooper to Josh Allen. The pitch that has been trending on social media for the last, I'd say, since the moment that game ended, from Sunday night, late Sunday night, to currently Wednesday night. Everybody's talking about this play that Amari Cooper made that allowed Josh Allen to not only score a touchdown for the Buffalo Bills, but for Allen to surpass Jim Kelly in all-time touchdowns in Buffalo Bills history. Now, I want to kind of tip the cap here to Jim Kelly here, because I realize just as much as anybody that the game has changed tremendously. This is not the same game that it was in the 80s. It's not the same game that it was in the 90s. It's not even the same game that it was, 10 years ago. The game has changed tremendously in terms of the ability for quarterbacks to move in the pocket, not really get hit the way that they used to, the way that Jim Kelly did, the way that Brett Favre did, the way that John Elway and Dan Marino did. But at the very least, it's a game in which the position itself has evolved as well as the change within the game. The rules have allowed the position, the quarterback position, I should say, to evolve. And Josh Allen's reaped the reward of that with his skill set, with his athleticism, with his speed, with his ability to run in the open field at 6'5", 245 pounds. Not many quarterbacks can run, can throw, can play the way that he plays each and every single week that he's worn the Buffalo Bills red, white, and blue. But I think it puts in perspective just how great Jim Kelly actually was, playing in an era that was a devastatingly tough era to play in, one where he called his own plays, ran his own offense essentially, and put himself in the Hall of Fame. Now, Josh Allen's going to stake his claim to his own career, as he has, potentially finding himself in Canton, Ohio. I think at some point, once it's all said and done, we'll be seeing his bust in Canton, Ohio. But 245 career touchdowns in 7 years, as opposed to Jim Kelly's 245 touchdowns in 11 or 12 years, I believe. Pretty remarkable to show that Allen has obviously been a quarterback that has reaped the reward of the rule changes in the league, as well as the skill that helped him get to that crazy, amazing milestone that I think really just shows just how dominant of a player he has been since he's come into the league, as well, surpassing the GOAT in Bills history at the quarterback position. That's the level that Josh Allen wants to be on when it's all said and done. Let's just say, God willing, 8 to 9 years from now. So is 500 touchdowns in his career on the horizon? Is 550? Is it possible? I think it is. I don't want to, go too far ahead, but at the same time, the sky's the limit. Each and every week, what Josh Allen has done has been truly remarkable. I would go as far as to say that this has been Allen's best season in his career. And it's insane for me to say that, because going into this season, a lot of the experts, the pundits, they said that Allen would struggle without Stephon Diggs. They said that he would struggle with a bunch of new weapons, and he'd find himself struggling at virtually some point this season. That has not happened. Not at any point this season has that happened. Even in the losses to Baltimore and Houston, Baltimore controlled the game. They ran the clock down. They utilized Derrick Henry. Allen didn't necessarily struggle. I think Houston, we had a little bit of a problem in that game with the wide receivers not getting separation. Go back and watch that game. You'd see a little bit of miscommunications, things like that. But the addition of Amari Cooper, the run game addition of Ray Davis, which I felt like I was talking about, and I'm not just saying this just to, toot my own horn here, but I felt like I was talking about that addition more than anybody. I didn't see anybody talking about Ray Davis as much as me post-draft. I put him right there with Keon as far as the impact that he could potentially have on this team, and he's made his impact. He's been a productive counterpart to James Cook. I think the sky's the limit for both him and James Cook, kind of being that security blanket for Josh Allen, so that Josh Allen's not doing everything on his own. But what a game, and what a huge testament it is to the team, the morale of the team, that when one guy goes down, another guy steps up. And to win this game this form and fashion, without Keon Coleman, without Dalton Kincaid, who I looked at as the two biggest pieces of this offense outside of Allen and Cook themselves, they weren't even out there on Sunday night. They weren't suiting up, at any point heading into this game with the injuries that they had. I know Coleman was questionable, but to be fair, I think that was just putting that out there. I don't think it was close. The fact that he would play, didn't even practice practically all week. So take that for what it's worth. But this defense has been very impressive. I think the maturity of the defense is starting to be seen with guys getting better in their fourth, fifth year. Guys like Greg Rousseau, AJ Epinesa, they've made plays essentially all year long. I think Epinesa's made plays that haven't really been on the stat sheet, more so like in the quarterback hurrying, rushing department, forcing the quarterback to make a decision. But Greg Rousseau has got the stats. He's got the ability to get to the quarterback, and he did that against Brock Purdy, and was really great in terms of run defense. As the game wore on, it became tougher for San Fran to throw the ball as the game started to see more snowfall, and both teams really adapted differently to that. Buffalo with a weatherproof quarterback, guy that can play in rain, sleet, snow, whatever it may be, fog. I would trust him to throw it with his eyes closed at this point. So the next question is not only about the division, but the big question right now, just among the football fans out there, is that Josh Allen, is he the league MVP as it stands? And as it stands right now, you got to look at the other guys that are in this argument, that are in this debate, I guess you could say, whether it's Josh Allen, whether it's Saquon Barkley, whether it's Lamar Jackson. And to me, it's the elephant in the room that I've always talked about in terms of how the league perceives Josh Allen. The reality is that he's been toe-to-toe with the perceived best quarterback in the league. The only thing separating Mahomes and Allen is the Super Bowls. That's really it. If you stripped away the accomplishment, you would see that both players are extremely good. I said the same thing, back in high school, dating myself here, but when Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were at the peak of their ability, the only thing that separated the two was the Super Bowls. That's the only thing that separates the two now, in my opinion. When it's all said and done, the only reason why Brady is looked at as the best is because he's got 7 and Peyton Manning's got 2. But if you look at the player's skill for skill, you'd see that, it's pretty even. It's pretty tight between the two of those guys. And I would go as far as to say the same thing when comparing Allen to Mahomes. But Mahomes hasn't won the NFL MVP last year. He didn't win it 2 times in the last couple years. Lamar Jackson did. And that's the guy that is always in the MVP conversation because of what he provides to the Baltimore Ravens in similar forms and fashion to what Allen provides the Buffalo Bills. But to me, there is no argument this season that the addition of Derrick Henry was needed for Lamar Jackson to consistently win, whereas Josh Allen lost pieces, gained some pieces, new pieces, rookies that he's had to rely on, and also they've had to rely on him in his own right. So to me, the debate is as clear as day that as of right now, there is no player that deserves the most valuable player award in the National Football League than Josh Allen. And it's really at this point his award to lose, because you look at the fact that we got 5 or 6 weeks left in the season. We have 2 games against the Patriots, 1 game against the Jets. We got Detroit on the horizon. So 4 weeks left. Doing the math, I know it's an 18-week season, but doing the math, 4 weeks left, 5 weeks left, actually, to come to think of it. So we finished 15-2. Let's just say we went out. I'm trying to be optimistic here, but Josh Allen continues to play the way that he's played in these next 5 weeks. I don't see any scenario or situation where he doesn't win the MVP unless this league is a complete joke, which could be a likely scenario given that Lamar Jackson won the MVP last year when I don't think he should have. So which guy has gone the distance? Which guy's gone further? Joe Burrow is on the outside looking in. The Cincinnati Bengals are probably going to miss the playoffs, which is great for the Buffalo Bills. I think that's probably the toughest matchup that the Bills could actually have is against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's had 99 points for the last 3 weeks combined, and they've lost all 3 weeks. So that's been like a rabbit foot or a horseshoe in the hands of the Buffalo Bills and their fans. So really thankful in reality that the AFC has kind of shaken out the way that it has, and that Josh Allen has been a big reason as to why the Bills are 10-2, but there's plenty of other reasons too. And I will say that, Sean McDermott does deserve a little bit of credit. I think a big turning point this season was the fact that they did lose to Houston the way that they did, with the ending result of terrible play calls that Sean McDermott kind of gave the green light to, was why they lost that game. They haven't lost since. So God willing, maybe I'm onto something here. Maybe I'm not, but God willing that they learned from that, and they're just trusting the entire team to just play to their role, play to their strengths, play to what they need to play to. And honestly, I think Bobby Babich and Joe Brady have done a great job at sticking to the players' strengths. This is probably the first time in the McDermott era, including Brian Dable, current Giants head coach, including Leslie Frazier, that they've actually played or I should say conducted a game plan that's actually to the players' strengths and to the players that they have, which I don't think was done as well previously as it is now. So a lot of credit deserves to go around. It's two polar opposite scenarios and situations that we'd be talking about here. If you ask me to compare the Buffalo Bills and the Buffalo Sabres, everything from the Bills and Sabres is completely different right now. It's a very interesting topic that I wanted to approach tonight. 3 days after the Bills beat the San Francisco 49ers in a snowy, classic, Josh Allen shines bright on the biggest stage once again at the most important position in the league. And then last night, you have the Sabres up 4-0 in the first period, and they lose the game 5-4 in regulation, not in overtime, but they allow what is 5 goals between the second and third period, losing to the Colorado Avalanche. I got a lot of people that have reached out to me over the last couple days about the Bills, and then I had more people, I would argue, more, just as many, I guess I could say, people reach out to me about the Sabres. What do I think about the Sabres? Give me your thoughts on the Sabres for Wednesday night's show. And the reality is, guys, I got nothing. I don't know what needs to change. They've changed coaches. They've changed GMs. They've changed players. They've had top 5 players, picks, come to their team. They've had what has been perceived as franchise-changing, moments where they've been so bad for so long that they've been able to get Jack Eichel and Rasmus Dahlin and Owen Power and guys like that, and they're still terrible. I go to, Sabres games, 3 to 4 a year, maybe even 4 to 5 a year, and I enjoy them. I want them to be good. I want the Bills to be great as they are. I want the Sabres to be on that same level, and we can't get both at once. It's really, really tough for me to admit that, because the last time the Sabres were really, really good, Bills were terrible. So if we could get both at the same time, the city would be buzzing as just as much as it is right now on the Buffalo Bills front, just as much as it has on the Buffalo Bandits front, with the Bandits winning 2 back-to-back championships, of course, competing in the last 4 NLL championships. That's pretty incredible. A great run that I don't see slowing down anytime soon, with Josh Byrne and Dane Smith and, of course, Matt Vince and all these guys that have come back. Tehoka, Nanticoke, of course. They got a lot of talent there. And the Sabres do too. But there is just something wrong within the nitty-gritty of this team, where things have gone well for the Bills, where the culture changed and the perception of being a Bill changed. The Sabres just seem to have this doom and gloom. Here we go again. Whenever things get rough, they snowball, and they snowballed in. I mean, I've watched the Sabres lose a lot of games that they should have won, even when they were good. They'd lose games, up 2-1 in the third. They'd lose 4-2, things like that against the Carolina Hurricanes, Game 7 of the 07-06 or 06-07, pardon me, 05-06 Eastern Conference Final. That was devastating. Being at the Lockport Palace with my dad, watching that game, thinking that they were about to go to the Stanley Cup, and then we lose in the third period. They score those 3 goals, and we go home. And they go on to the Stanley Cup, and they win the Stanley Cup, which was even worse. But at the same time, I just feel like the Bills are just a freight train that just keeps rolling every single year, despite all the criticism of this team and the decisions that they made. This was supposed to be a transition year. They're 10-2. Their quarterback is being talked about as, by me and by many others, as the should-be next NFL MVP. Meanwhile, the Buffalo Sabres, on the other hand, you're riding a high where Tage Thompson scores 2 goals in the first period. Your best player is untouchable in the first period. He scores 2 goals. Then you get another goal. You're up 4-0, and you lose 5-4. So I'm not going to blame Lindy Ruff. I tell you that. I will say that the team has played like a team more than any other year previously. But the results are still the same. They're still hovering around 500, where they're 12-12 or 12-12-1 or whatever their record is. They're hovering or below 500. They can't seem to get a streak of wins together, whether it's 2 wins or 3 wins. Just give me 3 or 4 wins in a row just to see some positive momentum. And now their schedule is turning its head, where they're playing some really tough teams. So I don't know what needs to take place. I think a lot of reflection needs to take place about what they need to do to be the team that they need to be. And I think Lindy Ruff is going to have to start holding some players accountable. I think if you're going to not play the way that Lindy Ruff wants you to play, then you shouldn't play. So that could be what's next for the Sabres. Some players getting benched, some players getting disciplined, and it'll be very interesting to see. But on one hand, you have the Bills, who are, buzzing, and they're doing what they need to do, winning the way they need to win, playing the way they need to play. And the Sabres are just doing the complete opposite. So you asked me to compare both. That's my comparison. So, of course, I really appreciate you guys tuning in. I always like to go live for 20 to 25 minutes here tonight. Really appreciate you guys hopping on here, hearing my take on the Buffalo Bills winning their 5th straight AFC title. Again, Miami, close but no cigar. The Jets, wow, what a dumpster fire of a team that is. And then the New England Patriots, I don't even necessarily want to pick on the Patriots as much as the Jets and Miami Dolphins. I had no hope for them to even compete, and they're probably going to finish 3-14. So, Drake May, I like Drake May. I thought that was a good pick, but they're a long ways away. So I'm not really, going to rip on the Patriots. They kicked our ass for 20 years. It's time that they sit in the basement for a little while before we let them upstairs. So that's my take on that and much, much more. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. I'll see you guys next Wednesday. I'll be on Sunday as well with Scott and Swank to preview the upcoming Bills battle with the LA Rams. Previewing that, I'll give you a little bit of a preview take, score prediction. So this game will be in LA under a dome, probably the most gorgeous stadium that's in the National Football League at this time, as teams make new stadium deals each and every year, it seems like. Bills Stadium, hoping it's just as beautiful as the one in LA, but we'll see about that. Wish we would have got a dome. I am team dome, but SoFi is going to get ripped apart by Josh Allen willing to uncork and let it fly with essentially one hand. Did I mention that the guy is on an MVP run playing with one hand? Thank God it's his throwing hand, and he's not throwing footballs left-handed. But I think Allen's going to really let it loose. Khalil Shakir should be all systems go. Coleman should be all systems go. Of course, Dalton Kincaid should be all systems go as well. So I think the Bills are going to win this one again. I'm going to go 31-17. The Rams offense has been very inconsistent. Kyron Williams is really their best bright spot. Puka has not really been healthy. Kupp is out, obviously, as well, in and out of the lineup. Stafford getting a little bit older. I don't want to see him retire for dynasty team reasons, but I think the end is near. So Rams defense, not what it was either with Aaron Donald now retired as well. So I think Buffalo's going to win. I'm going to go 31-17, and Josh Allen's going to put up 300 plus in a dome in the loose weather that brings to Buffalo and LA in that one. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Of course, I provided you a lot. My take on the Bills winning their 5th straight AFC's title, comparing the Bills and Sabres, polar opposites, and of course a score prediction for the Bills and Rams this Sunday, 4 o'clock on Fox. All right, there you have it. Thanks so much for tuning in. And of course, I'll see you Sunday and Wednesday.